All right. Valens on the moon. Here we go. So then, here is the glyph of the moon, Selene, Selene. The moon comes into being from the reflection of the solar light, and possessing a counterfeit light signifies in a human nativity life, the body, the mother, conception, form or appearance, countenance, goddess, companionship, or legally sanctioned marriage, nurse, older sibling, domesticity, a queen, mistress or lady of the house, goods or possessions, fortune, city, gathering of the masses, receipts, expenditures, home or dwelling, ships, living abroad, wanderings, since it does not hold straight through Cancer. So presumably this parenthetical remark by Valens about holding straight through Cancer refers to the fact that the moon's domicile is the crab in Cancer, and thus in some way like a crab, the moon signifies people or situations that are unable to go directly towards their unintended goal or destination, but instead they have to walk sideways or approach them in an indirect manner. A word that I often use here is oblique as well. Of the parts of the body, it is the lord of the left eye, the stomach, the breasts, the breath, the spleen, the membrane, and the brain from which it produces dropsy. It is the lord of the substance of silver and glass. She is of the nocturnal sect. The color is green light and salty in taste. So interestingly here, the breath can sometimes be translated as bladder. What? I don't know what this translation is about at all, but seems to me bladder seems more associated with the moon than breath. To me, breath feels so the word respire or inspire or aspire or all this, right? And so spire means breath. This feels like spirit, which feels a little more like the sun. To me, to my mind, bladder feels like it goes a little more with the moon if we're associating the moon with the first. So we've gotten the stomach and the breasts here, right? And so these are definitely like wet organs, and the stomach, you know, is part of this like gut situation where we're dealing with like taking things in and putting things out. So that makes more sense here to me, to my mind. Then what else was I gonna mention here? The brain, and so the brain and the dropsy, right? So this is like the membrane which encloses the brain, which is interesting, right? Because I don't necessarily know that the brain. So the brain versus mind and intelligence gets a little bit conflated in our current cosmology, but but that's a relatively new sort of thing. The brain and mind do not necessarily have to be the same thing, and this is a really good representation of that. We saw mind showing up in the sun, and here brain is showing up, or the membrane, the thing which encloses the fleshy bit, as being associated with the moon. So we can see some things that are going on here, which are pretty important. So I mentioned, or I read earlier, companionship or legally sanctioned marriage. So there's a good footnote here that all the translators have tended to render this word as living together or perhaps cohabitation, which is its primary meaning in the lexicon. However, the fact that Valens contrasts it with legally sanctioned marriage seems to imply that the secondary meaning of companionship might be more appropriate here, perhaps as another type of relationship. Probably both meanings are intended. So that's something important here. Nurse as well. Notions of nourishing, feeding, or nurturing may be implied with that. And then another one here is the gathering of the masses. The moon is associated with the gathering of the masses. And so we'll note that one of the significations of the sun was the leadership of crowds. We think, that was one of the ones that like had a little bit of a break in the text. But so the contrast here seems to be between the moon being the gathering of crowds, or masses, and the sun leading them. So that this refers again to think about the sun being sort of like the light and the moon reflecting the light, right? The sun is the one who is like sort of out here doing the thing, and then the moon is going to be sort of like the ones who are subject to that. And that's part of this counterfeit light piece here. And so the idea here with counterfeit light is that, so it calls it counterfeit, right? Which sounds fake. And so the idea there is that the corporeal form is somehow fake or is not the real thing, that the spirit is the real eternal thing, and that the corporeal or material form is fake and is not the real thing, and sort of like is a vessel which contains the real thing. So this is an interesting concept to think with. I don't necessarily adopt that in my own practice when I think about what the world is and all this, but it's interesting to hear what Valens has to say about it. And that is Valens on the moon.